Here with Dana Perino, former White House press secretary, and is also the co-host of The Five on the Fox News channel and a New York Times best-selling author. Dana served for 7 years in the administration of President George W. Bush and became the first Republican woman to be named as the White House press secretary. Dana joined the Bush administration following the September 11th terrorist attacks in 2001 as a spokesperson at the U.S. Department of Justice. Her first book, and the good news is, Lessons and Advice from the Bright Side, was released in 2015 and is one of the spotlights in the 2016 Savannah Book Festival. Greetings, Dana.
Thank
you for being here.
I hope I live up to the introduction. Thank you.
An amazing introduction. You've had a tremendous career in political news. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us how you got from Wyoming to Washington, and what led to the opportunity to become the first female press secretary for a Republican White House?
So that's my favorite question. It's a hard one to answer in a short period of time, but it's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because it's a question especially I would get from young people a lot, because young people, I think, are hungry for advice and they're looking for examples and anecdotes. Okay, so how does somebody who grew up on a cattle ranch with no political connections end up as the White House press secretary? It probably won't surprise you that a lot of people assume that I grew up in Texas and that somehow I knew the Bushes and that that's how I got my job. And when I say no, I grew up in Wyoming, they think, oh, she knew the Cheneys. And I didn't know the Cheneys or the Bushes, but so I wrote the book to explain to people that you don't have to have gone to an Ivy League university like Stanford or Harvard or Princeton or Yale to end up serving at the highest levels of government. And government is actually a great place to advance pretty quickly for, especially for women, actually. There are women serving at high levels, not necessarily in elected office yet. There are some, not enough, but there are higher levels, women working at higher levels of chiefs of staff, undersecretaries, actually running the equivalent of big corporations in Washington, D.C. I thought I would be a journalist. It's what I wanted to do. My path took me in a different direction. I ended up working on the other side of television and news, which was working as a spokesperson on Capitol Hill. And what I found in writing the book is, I wanted just to write the book of what it was like to work as the press secretary. But my editor said, you can't really show up at 37 as the White House press secretary without explaining what happened before that. And I had to dig a little deep in myself and say, okay, well, how would I describe that? And I go back to one particular moment with my father that led me to the opportunity eventually. And that was when I was in third grade, started this tradition where I had to read the Denver Post, the Rocky Mountain News before he got home from work. And I had to pick out 2 articles to discuss. And I had to tell him why I liked the article or why it was of interest to me, what I thought about it. And then he would gently play the devil's advocate or to help me think through my arguments. So fast forward 30 years or so, and I'm the deputy press secretary. And I'm on Marine One, and the President of the United States turns to me and asks me, well, what do you think? And I said, and I don't remember the issue, I just remember it was a controversial one, and my opinion was unpopular amongst staff. But I just told him what I thought, and he said, huh. And he looked out the window for a minute, and I'll never forget, he turned back around and he said, she's exactly right. And I thought, wow. And I had this moment of flashing back to where my father instilled in me the confidence to present my opinions and my arguments in a safe place in front of a dominant male figure. And that once you do it a couple of times and you get that confidence, you're good to go.